Hey, have you ever been fascinated by the idea of making your own battery? Don't hold back that passion any longer. Welcome to today's awesome video, where I'll guide you into the world of DIY battery making, simple, fun, and super creative. With just a few easy-to-find items, you'll be able to create your very own power source. Feeling excited yet? Grab a seat, hit play, and let's dive into this epic battery making journey. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your passion in the comments. However, when I went through my pile of old batteries, none of them were suitable. Some were rusty, others had very low voltage, making them unusable for this experiment. So I decided to make my own battery, partly for testing, and partly to see if it could perform as well as a commercial one. To be sure, I used a voltmeter to check if any of them still had a bit of charge left. I connected the probes to the terminals one by one. But the readings were almost flat, barely any voltage at all. It was clear that these batteries were completely drained and couldn't be revived. However, this button cell battery seemed to be the most promising one. Its voltage was still around 1.5 volts, which meant it could potentially power a small device like an alarm clock. But its size was quite small, which might make it a bit tricky to fit properly into the battery compartment. That's why I'm here to show you how to turn a short battery into a longer one. A simple DIY trick that can make it fit perfectly and work just like a regular battery. Now, let's get started and make our very own battery. Next, I'll start disassembling this AA battery step by step. First, I'll carefully peel off the outer label, then use a small cutter to open the metal casing. Inside, there's a layer of black paste and a central rod. Those are the active materials that I won't need for this project. I'll carefully clean them out, making sure not to damage the metal tube or the two ends of the battery. Once everything inside is removed, what I have left is an empty shell, basically just a casing and two terminals. This outer shell will act as the body for my new DIY battery, allowing me to reuse it as a holder to connect the button cell later on. It's a clever way to recycle and give new life to an old battery. After that, I'll use a bit of acetone to clean the battery shell and both terminals. Acetone works great for removing any leftover paste, dirt, or corrosion stuck to the surface. I'll dip a cotton swab into the acetone and gently wipe the inside and outside of the casing until the metal shines again. Cleaning it properly is an important step. It ensures that the new connections will conduct electricity well, and that the DIY battery will look neat and professional when it's finished. Once everything is cleaned, the next step is to fill the empty space between the button cell and the AA battery casing. I'll use a small piece of hot glue stick for this step. It's easy to cut, lightweight, and fits perfectly inside the AA battery shell. I'll trim it to the right length so that it fills the gap between the button cell and the casing, keeping everything aligned and stable. Since the button cell is much smaller, I need to make sure it fits snugly inside the shell so it doesn't move around. However, since the hot glue stick doesn't conduct electricity, I'll need to wrap a layer of aluminum foil around it. The foil will act as a conductor, allowing the electric current to flow between the button cell and the AA battery terminals. I'll wrap several layers of aluminum foil around it until it fits snugly inside the AA battery shell. The goal is to make sure it's not loose or wobbly when in use. Each layer adds a bit more thickness and improves the contact between the foil and the inner wall of the casing. Now it's time to test the voltage. I'll connect one probe of my voltmeter to the positive side of the button cell, and the other probe to the aluminum foil wrapped around the hot glue stick. The meter shows a reading of about 1.5 volts, which means the connection is working perfectly. This confirms that the current can flow from the button cell through the foil, making my DIY battery ready to power small devices just like a regular AA battery. Next, I'll insert the hot glue stick, now wrapped in aluminum foil, into the empty AA battery shell. I'll carefully press it down until it sits firmly inside, making sure it fits tightly from end to end. By compressing it this way, I can ensure that the foil makes solid contact with the inner metal surface, which is crucial for proper conductivity. I'll double check that it doesn't move or shift inside the casing. I'll place the button cell into the shell, making sure its positive side aligns with the positive terminal of the AA battery casing. There's also a small rubber pad from the positive terminal that I need to attach. Next, I'll attach a small piece of wire to help conduct electricity through the rubber pad. I'll position one end of the wire so it touches the top of the button cell, then run it along or through the rubber pad to ensure it makes good contact with the AA battery's positive terminal. Now, I'll secure the positive terminal piece onto the top of the battery assembly. I'll press it gently but firmly so that it sits flush against the rubber pad and the wire I just added, ensuring solid contact with the button cell underneath. To keep everything securely in place, I'll wrap some tape around the top of the battery. The tape holds a positive terminal, the rubber pad, and the wire firmly inside the shell, preventing any movement. Next, I'll attach the negative terminal to the bottom of the battery. I'll make sure it sits firmly against the aluminum foil and the inner wall of the casing, ensuring a solid connection with the button cell. After that, I'll wrap the entire battery with tape, covering the shell completely while leaving only the very tip of the positive and negative terminals exposed. This keeps the internal components secure and prevents any accidental short circuits, while still allowing the battery to be connected to a device. Now, I'll measure the voltage of the completed DIY battery using a voltmeter. I'll place the probes on the exposed positive and negative terminals and check the reading. This time, the voltmeter reads about 1.4 volts. It's slightly lower than the full 1.5 volts of a fresh button cell. The slight voltage drop is caused by contact resistance and the intermediate materials. Between metal surfaces, there's always a thin layer of oxide, air, or dust, which creates extra resistance. Also, the AA battery casing made of steel or zinc may have aged and oxidized over time, so it conducts electricity less efficiently than metals like aluminum or copper. That's why the DIY battery shows a reading about 0.1 volts lower than the original button cell. It's due to voltage drop at temporary connections, aluminum foil, old casing, metal oxidation, not because the battery itself is weak. I'll test the DIY battery by inserting it into an actual device. In this case, an alarm clock. I carefully slide it into the battery compartment, making sure the positive and negative ends align correctly with the terminals. The clock runs smoothly and consistently, which proves that the DIY battery is functioning effectively. The hands move steadily. The alarm mechanism responds, and there's no sign of flickering or power loss. This shows that even with a slight voltage drop, the battery delivers enough current to operate the device reliably. It's a simple yet impressive demonstration of how a small button cell, combined with some clever DIY modifications, can substitute for a standard AA battery. Next, I decided to test the DIY battery with a wireless mouse. I removed one of its regular AA batteries and replaced it with my homemade one, making sure the polarity matched correctly. As soon as I closed the battery cover and switched it on, the mouse's LED light turned on immediately, a good sign that it was receiving power. I moved it around, and that's it. Our DIY AA battery is complete. From an old button cell and some basic materials, we built a fully functional battery that can power small devices reliably. This project shows that with a bit of creativity and patience, you can repurpose old batteries, save resources, and even learn a lot about how electricity and circuits work. Give it a try and see what other fun DIY electronics experiments you can come up with.